We wanted to meet Mike today because we are facing, as clinicians, a very stressful situation. I know that many of you are struggling with very difficult issues in the consulting room. It is difficult, if not impossible, to meet patients face to face. Many of you have lost patients or moved to meet patients from distance. Some patients are not able to pay their fees. There is so much that we as therapists are struggling, so much uncertainty. We need help. We need help. We need advice. We need experienced minds to think it over with us. The ordinary setting, we always thought of it as so important for stability and trust. We even thought that the setting is curative in itself. It is now in danger and rather shaky. How can we, in the midst of this corona crisis, can create an environment where we can hold our patients and support them? So we are really happy to discuss all these issues with Mike, to host Mike, and we would want to thank all of you for your participation. We thank Sharon Ziv for offering in such a generous way this platform of טיפול.net. Sharon is with me now, and she will take part in this conversation. And now Mike, I don't see Mike. Is he here?
Me? I'm here.
Oh, I can see you now. Right. So thank you very much, Mike, for taking the time and joining us. We really, really appreciate that you are being here, speaking to the Israeli mental health community. So thank you so much. And now, Mike, an emotional storm is going on. Inside and outside. Too many things are going on. People feel crazy. They're going crazy. They cannot digest. They cannot reflect so much. There is a sense of too muchness in the world, in our country, in our families, and with our patients. Everything seems out of control. Everything seems going wrong. You wrote extensively about these feelings. How can we better cope, Mike?
Wow. That's great, Aner. That was a great talk. Terrific. Well, I'll tell you a crazy secret. I shouldn't say this in front of so many people, but difficult as it is, it doesn't feel that much different to me than ordinary life, because all these feelings go on in ordinary life too. We don't have the physical restriction, but we do have emotional restrictions. And we do have emotional turbulence and anxieties and fears and hopes and trauma. That's part of our makeup. So it's nothing new to the human race to have a series of traumas, one worse than the other. I'm just curious, I'll talk more, but does anyone remember what Freud wrote to the Gestapo when he was coming out of Germany? If anyone remembers, say. So Freud called psychoanalysis the plague. I brought the plague. I brought the plague to humanity. But then he met a bigger plague, and he had to leave his home country. And a wonderful French woman helped get him out with some of his family and with his. He took his doctor with him. And as he was leaving, he had to sign a document that the Gestapo gave him saying that they treated him okay and that everything was okay between him and the Gestapo. And then he asked, he says, "Can I just add a few words of my own?" And they said, "Yes, go ahead." And he says, "Well, I can recommend the Gestapo to anyone." And he signed it Sigmund Freud. So hard times is nothing new. And I don't have statistics, so I can't say, but I suspect as bad as diseases have been for humankind, and have wiped out so many people and so much of the population at different times. I think human beings have killed more human beings than disease has. My guess is that the bigger virus is the human psyche, the human mind, and that humanity has inflicted more pain and death and deformity on other human beings than disease has. Bad as disease is, the human disease is even worse. So we are, when we get through this, and we will get through it, not all of us, never happens that all of us, there are always losses, always, not everyone makes it, some do, from many, many factors. I see that young people are dying. Now, when this began, only old people were supposed to be dying. But now there are young people in their 40s, caretakers. So it's like a throw of a dice. It's like being on a battlefield and you don't know where the shell's going to hit. And if you're young, you're not safe. And if you're old, you're not safe. There's no area that's a safe zone. The bomb can fall anywhere. But most of us are going to get through it. And humanity is going to survive. And most of us are going to survive in one way or another. And I can tell you that many, many of us, not all, but many of us are going to grow from this. Many of us are going to feel more for humanity. Many of us, our hearts are going to be touched, and we're going to feel a compassion more for our fellow being, for what we have to go through. Maybe even we'll feel more compassion for ourselves, what we have to go through. It's almost, we're almost impenetrable. We're almost impenetrable. We shut so much out that we can hardly find ourselves. So a disease like this, sad as it is, tragic as it is, you feel yourself. It's bursting through, it's coming through. Oh my God, you know, you have a reason to feel. And you have a reason to feel because we're all threatened now. We're all threatened by a common threat. It's not one human being threatening another now, not one group threatening another now, not a tyrant threatening a whole bunch of people to get them under control. It's a disease that all human beings are sharing in, and it's an amazing happening in some deep way. And I predict, and it's not a good way for it to happen, but I predict that there's going to be an outburst of creativity that grows out of this, that people are going to be writing, drawing, playing music, that there's going to be a burst of creativity that grows out of this tragic moment. Mm-hmm. And it's happening already. Not just great people doing creative things, everyone doing their own little bit of creativity, whatever it is, with their own little spark. Whether it's walking down the street and seeing a flower or whatever it is, or appreciating getting out after they've been cramped up. But there's going to be a feeling, oh my God, you know, it's like coming through the flood with Noah. How did Noah come through the flood? He lucked out. Why did he get chosen? He was as bad as everyone else. He lucked out. And so most of us are going to luck out too, and we're going to appreciate the fact that, oh my God, you know, we can get through this, and we can grow. We can grow and feel ourselves more. So yes. We'll see.
Well, you're talking about the future, and you portray, you know, a somewhat, I think, a very optimistic and right vision of what will happen. But in the present, we're not there. We're not still there. And I think we in Israel know a lot about wars, but we know nothing about epidemia and virus, you know. And let's talk about psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is like a piano. I don't think we have the right keyboard for the coronavirus. We cannot see a patient because he might infect us, and he cannot see us because we might infect him. What kind of psychoanalytic language can ever describe being phobic and distancing ourselves from our own patients? The movement towards security is the opposite direction from the therapist or the patient?
Well, it depends on your point of view. What you described is a beautiful description of certain aspects of therapy, that we are phobic about each other, that we don't know how to contact each other, that we're afraid of the contact and want the contact at the same time. Some of us want contact more, some of us want contact less. But everything you said can be true of the consulting room when we see patients. Was Freud's need or genius or just feeling that he decided he would sit in back of the patient so that patient and he would not see each other and suffer the visual distraction of each other's face and rely more on hearing rather than seeing. And this situation is forcing us more to rely on hearing rather than seeing. I know that a lot of people see their patients by video. I do that sometimes, but I don't like it very much because it's not the real person. When I see someone's face on the video, it's not really their face. It's like something you could slide off of. It's not the depth of a face that you see in real life. It's not the depth of the expression that you see in a face in real life. It's sort of like a picture, an image, and you could slide off it. But when you just hear the person and hear each other, it's like psyche to psyche for me. It's like what Fright getting rid of the visual distraction. Then you could then hear the tone, hear the affect coming through the tone. What's possible, what's not possible, the affect that can be expressed, the affect that can't be expressed. You hear it with both ears. You have an ear for hearing what's there, and you have an ear for hearing what's not there. And you can focus, you can concentrate, you can feel more deeply from voice to voice, from hearing to hearing, without sliding off the other person's image. And in a way, Lacan was onto something very important. Like all my life, I have loved the image. Image has been very full of expression, art, expressive faces. But when Lacan comes along and talks about the imaginary aspect of the image, that it takes you away from the real, and that it gets connected with all kinds of identity formations that may also take you away, that makes it possible to live and survive, but also takes you away from a deeper reality. So I feel like a relief. I'm not stuck to the image now, and I could use another sensory modality. And in the Bible, it says, be quiet, listen, close your eyes, listen, and hear God. Hear God, listen to God, hear God. Hear the voice within, the still small voice within, the voiceless voice, the ineffable voice. So that when you shut off the visual control, the visual capture, the visual prison, you have a chance to open up other dimensions of experience. And the bond that's between the therapist and the patient, or the bond that can grow between the therapist and patient, isn't simply visual. It's deeper. It's affect to affect, self to self, the ineffable to the ineffable, the sense of helping and being helped, a presence, a different kind of presence that's beyond the visual. So this is an opportunity as well as a deficit. It's not just it is a hardship, but it's not just a hardship. It's also a chance to develop other modalities that can take us deeper to other realms of experience.
Yes, and what if the patient insists of meeting us with a certain eye contact that the internet enables? What if we tell him all our good reasons, not just with our voice, and he insists that he can't just do it?
And you do it with visual. You do it with a video. You follow what's possible. You follow the lines that are possible and see if anything further happens. You ask, so tell me, what do I look like? What do you feel? How do you feel I see you right now? What do you look like? What do you look like inside? What are you seeing? What are you seeing when you look at the screen and look at me? What comes to you? What are the feelings that you get when you see my face? Do I scare you? Do I comfort you? You know, am I a monster? Or do I make you happy? Do I make you sad? Do I make you empty? Am I an empty person? There's nothing here. I'm just a dead weight here on your life. Tell me what's in you when you look at me, and tell me how you feel inside, how you think I see you. There's something, you go with it. You go with it, let the psyche work with it.
I still want to know more about what you think about our being phobic and suspicious to other people in you know, in the streets, in our surrounding, as an emotional stance that is so, you know, not something we are used to. And how does it affect our being a therapist when we feel so phobic, suspicious, frightened to be infected by someone? How does this enter into the consulting room?
Well, I know you're trying to get me to say something, but I feel that way all the time. This is not a new thing for me to feel that way. But I have a phobic side, and I have an affectionate, bonding side. I have both sides. I'm fearful of people and attracted to people, both. I have a need for people and a need to be away from people. So it's not a new thing. It's another part of my nature that now is in the foreground rather than the background. That's more a thematic now than floating around in the unconscious. But it's real. It's a deprivation, and for many it's more of a deprivation than others. And it's sad that such a deprivation should be happening, but it is happening. It is. So tell me about all the losses in your life. Tell me all the deprivations in your life. Tell me, this is not the first time that you have felt so scared of being with people. Tell me more about it. What's the first dream you ever had? What was it like for you as a little child? Was there fear there? What happened when you went to school? Was it a relief to get away from home? Was it frightening to get away from home? Tell me everything.
I understand. So what you're saying that these fear and suspicions and phobia is not really specific to this coronavirus crisis, right? That it's all been here with us, you know, from the start, and now it's just more reenacts itself through the corona crisis. I think that's what you're saying, isn't it?
The corona crisis did not create mortality, and it's taking advantage of it. And it's going to kill a bunch of us. Unfortunately or unfortunately, I don't know which, for statistics courses to get my degree in psychology. So I learned a little bit about statistics, not very much, because I don't think anyone knows very much about it. But as far as I could figure out, it's not more than 3% of the people who get this disease that die from it. Now, that's probably wrong, and maybe in some places it's more than others, and in some places less than others. I don't, oh, he's drinking beer again, or wine. Which is not a bad idea. So most of us are going to survive this. Whether you're old, whether you're young, or in between, most of us are going to survive this. And maybe some people will be survivors who would prefer not to be survivors. I don't know. You killed the wrong person disease. So why didn't you take me rather than my child, you know, or than my father or grandfather? But we're going to come through this, and some of us are going to benefit. We're going to be stronger. We're going to be more humane, and we're going to learn how to do therapy in ways that we're going to not take therapy for granted. And we're not. And I don't think that people. If people want to stop for a while therapy, fine, let them stop and let them, you know, make it possible for them to stop easily and to keep the door open for you or for someone else. The therapy is a big field. If you don't like to talk to me on the phone or on the video, maybe you'll like to talk to someone else anyway. Don't shut if someone's leaving, say, you know, if you got to go, you got to go. You got to take care of yourself. That's the first thing. So this is the way that you got to take care of yourself, I support it. But don't shut yourself out for therapy if you ever feel you need it. And you could come to me, you could come to, it's a huge field, and I could recommend people and other people, you know, but don't deprive yourself of this contact if you feel it can be helpful. But if you feel it can't be helpful, save yourself. Do what you need to do.
Yes. I have a patient that I think have benefited from the crisis. This is a female patient that compulsively wash her hands for years, and she does not agree to take psychiatric medicine. She just wants psychotherapy. And you know her, Mike, because I brought her to supervision in our co-authored book. She is still with me.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. I have patients with me 50 years now.
Well, she gave me permission to discuss her case today. And, well, surprisingly, she feels better now, relieved, because she feels that she is a real hero, that she was right all the time. She always thought of people as reckless, not protecting themselves enough from germs and virus. And now she feels that she was right all the time. And actually, she thinks that scientists have learned from her and from other compulsive hand washers how to deal with the coronavirus. What do you think of that?
I love it. I think that now she has company. So now she doesn't feel so alone and strange and sticking out and weird, and that she's the mad one. And now it turns out that she was she had the wisdom after all. She was the sane one with her own savoir, her own wisdom, the wisdom of her obsession. And all we learned from Lacan, we learned from Freud, we learned from going deeply, that there's wisdom to our pathology. That our pathology didn't evolve to hurt us, it evolved to protect us from even worse possibilities. And even hurting ourselves protects us from worse possibilities. I went to one group for a couple of years to learn. They were the only group in the city who worked with psychosis, so I wanted to see what they were doing. Good group. And one of their formulations was we hurt ourselves to protect the other, that the baby, in order to protect the mother, the first object, from its own hostility, from its own hatred, turns to hatred against itself. Otherwise, if it destroyed the mother, it wouldn't survive. It catches on. I need her. She feeds me. She takes care of me. I cannot do it myself. It's sort of, the baby is sort of like the psychotic who goes psychotic and thinks he can control it, that he can stop it. You put him in a hospital. After a while, he realizes, oh my God, I can't control it. It's just happening to me. The observer is still there. I can see it. It's happening to me, but I was wrong. I cannot control it. I need help. And the baby's in that position. The baby's in the position, I'm omnipotent. I can do it. I'm doing all. No, I can't. I will not live if mother doesn't feed me. I will not survive if she doesn't, take me here, put a blanket over me, change my diapers. And so the baby then begins turning portions of its hate, because everyone hates everyone, loves everyone, hates everyone. We all hurt it. We hurt each other. We hurt each other. It's part of life. And you have to learn how to deal with that if you're going to survive in a relationship. You have to learn a good balance between closeness and distance and backing off and how to express yourself. This is all learning process to get along with each other. We're dangerous creatures. We're dangerous creatures. We used to have claws. We used to have fangs. But we have psychic claws and psychic fangs. And so the baby learns to protect the situation by turning some of the anger against himself, some of the hatred. Yeah, Mom, you're pretty good, but you should have done it this way. If you had moved a little in that direction, I would have felt a little better, but I have to adapt you in a funny way and it hurt my shoulder. So you're not perfect, Mom, but I can't communicate this to you because I don't know how to talk, but I can, whimper or cry or say, ow, go make a sound. So anyway, whole communication, languages, different languages of communication grow up around pain, around pleasure, around comfort, around discomfort, disturbance. And some people are better at picking it up than others. Some people are less attuned. Some are more attuned this way, less attuned that way. Mm-hmm. And the baby and mother develop their own pain language, their own pleasure language. And they mold each other in a way to work within the world system, the language system that they're able to tolerate, that they're able to handle, that their makeup allows them to have. And so the psychotic and the baby are in a very similar situation. In the beginning, they think, oh, they can do it. And they find out they can't. They have to rely on help. They need help. And sooner or later, we all get it. We all get it. Yes, I'm omnipotent, but no, I can't do it all by myself. I need help. And a situation like this, bad as unfortunate, you know, I wish you weren't here, but a situation like this forces us to realize at some point or other, we need to help each other. And yes, even if we're in isolation and we have to protect each other I'm making a sacrifice. I'm making a sacrifice in order not to get sick or make you sick. I'm spending a lot of time at home. And at the same time, I'm hearing from certain people that being at home with themselves gives them an opportunity to build and do things they didn't ordinarily do. More people are writing. More people are drawing. More people are looking at good videos, video series, and get the video series on the TV that they have is just representations of psychical realities. They're all different portrayals of emotional nuclei and emotional situations, jams we get into, jams we get out of. It's all this, you know, moments of hurt and moments of joy. One series after another.
There was an interesting question from the audience that sometimes the patients are worried about the health of their therapist. They're worried that their therapist might be infected. And it turns out to be something they're anxious about.
Well, my older child, he's not a child, he's almost 40, is very worried about us because of our age. He's in California, we're here, he can't do anything to help us. And that's okay, I want him to help himself, but he's worried about the parent. He's worried about the mom. And that the baby mother and the psychotic needing attendance to help him make peace with himself to some degree if he can. And the patient who worries about the therapist, it's an archetypal worry that the one that's helping me won't be able to help me. And I'd like to help the one that's helping me. It's a mutual thing. I'd like to give to the one who's giving to me. That's people can grow into that. Like, you know, like someone who's been in dire stress, really dire stress, really dire stress for years and years and years. And they come to therapy, and over the course of 20 years, they begin to feel better. It could take 20 years, 10 years, 30 years. I have people for 40 years, 50 years I have people. And they would not have survived without therapy, and they would not have gotten what they could get without it. They could not have. And at some point, not all, but most of them, the great majority of them begin to appreciate it. They say, oh, they begin to appreciate it. They begin to move from hatred to gratitude. And Melanie Klein's book, Envy and Gratitude. So many people don't like Melanie Klein these days. She's wonderful. I could tell you, without Melanie Klein, there wouldn't have been a Beyond or a Winnicott. They were different from her. They survived her. They got past her. They got through to their own thing. But they wouldn't have been who they were without Melanie Klein as a background. And her book, Envy and Gratitude, sounds like gibberish to people because it's so filled with psychoanalytic jargon. Translate it into your own psychical jargon is terrific. The tension between gratitude and envy, between hostility and the good feeling, and the anger that the good feeling is being taken away from me. But at some point, the patient who's been in terrible, terrible distress and begins to feel a little better connects it, saying, you helped me, and you begin, and the baby then feels, or the distressed one then feels, I'd like to help you. Is there anything I can do for you? Maybe my good feeling can make your bad feeling feel a little better.
Mm-hmm. Klein is very popular in Israel. Just
good.
You know. Yes,
it's popular in some of the places that here, but I'm in love.
Well, you know, some patients has that feeling we need now to change the setting and meet them through in distance or just by phone. And some people say that I can't meet you just by phone. It will not be the same.
It will not be
the same. Yes, you know that feeling that it's not the same.
It's not the same.
I can't make it if it's not identical to what we had, you know? And there are people that, I heard people in psychoanalysis that are putting the computer device, they are lying on their own bed in their private home, and they're putting their computer device on the head so they just can hear the therapist, but cannot see him. So it will be similar conditions to the original setting. What do you think?
I have patients who have been doing that for decades. People, if they can't, I have had periods where I can't come in, like this past year. What am I, 84? So in my 83rd year, that was last year, I had 2 injuries. And one, it was the first time I broke bones, broke real bones in my life, 83. And broke a shoulder, but that didn't stop me from coming in. I came in, and then broke the femur. The femur, which is the biggest bone in the body, joins the hip and the thigh. And I could not come in. And I was out, I don't know how long, 3 months maybe. I expect us to be out. My crazy estimation that we're going to be out 4 months, but the real estimations from actual people who study this say 6 months. 6 months or longer. But I don't know, I keep thinking 4 months. We'll see what's right. I don't know. 4 to 6 months. And anyway, I was already out for that long a period of time. And I didn't lose a patient. Now, why? One patient couldn't bear it and cut down to once a week. Fine. You know, if I had lost the patient, that would have been fine too. But it still didn't, because the sound of the voice, is the sound of the heart, the sound of the heart, the sound of the depth. We have, in addition to all the practical, concrete, sensory senses that we have visual, audio, touch, kinesthetic, proprioceptive. We have an ineffable sense. It's an ineffable sense. And all our senses communicate this ineffable sense too. We learn how to use all our senses, and we have our visual art, and we have musical art. We cultivate all the different proprioception, kinesthetic, athletics. We cultivate all our different sensory equipment. The French do cooking, and so we have all the taste, and but we have also the psychical senses, psychical taste, psychical sound, and we have this mysterious thing. The Bible noticed it. The Hindu writings notice it. It's in an ineffable sense. In an ineffable sense, it could be horrible, and it could be beatific, depending on how it's functioning. And in therapy, this ineffable sense then can hold the situation together if people let it in. And it's a matter of letting something else in and going further with it. The person who's deprived with it says, it's not the same. You're right. It's not the same. It isn't. How can it be the same? It's not. Your job is to get through it. I would tell them. I was saying, your job, you can't tolerate it now. Let's build. You're going to have, if you're going to stay in therapy, you don't have to stay in therapy. Would I like to see you stay in therapy? For your sake, yes. Is there a part of you that would like to stay in therapy and a part of you that doesn't want to be in therapy? There's a war. Maybe there's a war inside and you don't even know about it between the part that wants to stay and the part that wants to leave. Maybe it's a war that goes on all the time, but other things too. You want to stay, you want to go towards, and you want to go away. So maybe, but you know, so, but if you, what I'd like to let you know, build up your sense of endurance. Build up your sense of persistence. You build up the sense of the part of you that says you gotta stay. And the other part of you says, I can't stay. I don't want to stay. I don't have to stay. Honor it. Honor it. But get through it. It's now time to get through it, to stand up to yourself and not to be tyrannized by yourself. Man, let's work with it.
So we should actually try to convince. How much should we try to convince our patients to stay in therapy?
Convince. I feel strongly that they're being tyrannized by themselves, and I want to convey. I said, can you feel what a tyrant you are to yourself? There's a part of you that really does want to stay. No, is that true? If I'm wrong,
no, I just can't make it. I just can't make it in these conditions. That's what the patient said. I just can't make it.
You've got to do what's right for yourself. What do you feel is right for yourself?
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay, and you know,
and if you feel at some point you can't make it alone, and you just want to say hello and have a phone contact with me, you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Should we initiate a contact with those who leave us? Initiate a contact. They disappear. Should we reach out for them?
Here I am, a victim of my training. Many decades ago, I tend not to do that. I wouldn't. I personally, but that's me. Maybe someone else could do it and do it well, right? I tend to honor. I tend to respect. They don't want to be here. They don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. I wish them well. I wish them well. Whatever they're doing, maybe they'll cure themselves. I remember at a certain point, Beyond told me stop therapy. It took me a few more years to do that, but it was very helpful.
Yes. He told you to get married too, didn't he?
He told me to get married. It took me a few more years to do that, but it was very helpful.
Yes. So what kind of training did you get that you don't reach out patients?
I don't know. I'm a victim of my training. It's just kind of like I'm respecting their coming and going. Respecting they want to see me. I don't want to bother them. Maybe they got someone else now. Maybe they're doing better and they're saying, thank God I left them. You know, but if you have a relationship with a person that you feel this person would benefit, would like it, would feel good if I reached out to him, even if he's going to reject me, just to let him know that I care. Mm-hmm. Just because I'm worried, like a parent.
Yeah, well, if you are a parent, you would reach out, wouldn't you? You would call from time to time and ask how he is and everything.
We talk to our kids almost every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're in the situation that you're in. Maybe I would reach out. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I don't think. I'm trying to think of situations. I don't think I have done that. I just don't think I've done that. I remember a passage by Winnicott. Maybe because I've never freed myself from my early influences, and because they helped me so much. Or a passage from Winnicott where he says that he's had the urge to call patients who have left him and he hasn't seen, just to see how they're doing. But he didn't. He didn't call. He stopped himself from calling out of respect for their own autonomy. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's wrong. But they're not my children. In a way, yes, and in a way, no. The parent-child relationship is there. In a way, they're my parents too. We gain from therapy. No one gains more from therapy than therapists. It's therapy helps us. Doing therapy helps us. It helps not just because we're helping others. That helps too. It always helps to help others, yes. But it really helps us psychically to be working with our psyche in different ways with different people, because we're getting psychic exercise, we're getting psychic knowledge, we're getting psychic contact, and we need it. Some of us need it more than others. And if you're a therapist, you probably need it a hell of a lot.
Yes. Well, I have a few patients who really, quit and actually disappeared. And I sort of stay in contact with them and reach out for them. And I feel guilty not to do that, I'm imagining their conversation with me right after the coronavirus crisis is over. And they will ask, didn't you care about me? Didn't you think of me? How can you let me go like that? Not even phoning me or asking me how do I do? And that's what motivated me to, to reach out for them and initiate contact with them.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. We don't have to be the same. You're a very special person. You have your own divine spark. You have your own human spark, your own human spirit, your own personality makeup, your own sensibility. I think the human species is made up of many, many, many species with different sensibilities. And this is part of your sensibility, and you're expressing it in your special way. And with your patients, they don't have someone else as a therapist. They don't have this person, that person. They don't have me. They don't have they have you. They have you. And there's only one you. And you're doing it your way. And let it keep developing your way. I think that's beautiful.
Yes. And I have, someone who I supervise, and she said to me, a therapist, and she said to me, I just can't work with patients right now. I have 2 kids. I'm alone. I have to hold them. I have to teach them. There's too much is going on. I don't have privacy. And I just can't make it. And on the other side, she feels really guilty of abandoning her patients. And she really is in real distress right now.
Well, there are many levels of something like that, many levels. There's the level of practical level. If she's with her kids and she can't do it and it's too much for her. There's the practical level. Maybe you'll come back to it later. Maybe you'll come back to it later. Okay. So maybe it's better to leave now. But there's also the clinical level. Maybe there's something to gain from it clinical, whether she stays, whether she goes. There's still the clinical level and things to ask. So tell me about all your abandonment. I'm not telling you whether you should stay, whether you should go. Tell me all about your abandonment feelings, all the times you felt abandoned or were afraid of abandonment. I want to hear everything you could tell me in your life that you can remember about feeling abandoned or afraid to be abandoned. I want to hear about it. So, because you're now in a conflict to stay or not to stay. Tell me all about the conflicts you've had through your life about staying and not staying. Going towards going away, getting too close, getting too far. I want to hear it all, because this is a good opportunity to get further, to get knowledge of yourself, contact with yourself, whether you go or stay. It's okay to go, it's okay to stay. Whatever works for you. If it's too big a burden now, I remember there was a time, I don't remember exactly when, with our first child, maybe people began to call my wife and say, Betty, where are you? It's like she had forgotten she had a session. When maybe maybe our kid was 2 years old, 3 years old, I don't even know, not more, something like that. And then she realized that she was beginning in some small way, not showing up for sessions. And so she stopped doing therapy for a period until the kids got older, and now she's been doing therapy for years now. But she went through a period of, she found her system wasn't able to do both. So she stopped for a while and then went back to it. So that's possible too. So you don't know what the practical outcome would be, but you can milk it for the clinical, whatever you could learn about, let her learn about her life. Tell me about how this conflict has played out in other ways in your life up till now. Because Freud's theory of conflict is not something should be abandoned. It should be integrated. That there's always distant conflict with that. It's not simply hunky-dory. There's reality, and there's our wishes, and there's reality. So tell me everything you can about how this system conflicted with that system.
Yes,
there's too much with the not enough.
A clinician from the audience said that Winnicott wrote in fragments of analysis to a patient in his initiative, and he asked him in a letter, how is he after years of being psychoanalyzed with him, and he wrote a very sincere and moving letter, and the patient did answer him. And it was very moving. It's very unusual to do these things as psychotherapists, you know. I wonder why it is. Why all our training is against, you know, initiating a contact with our patients, even in extreme conditions like these.
Yes. So then follow your inner daemon, follow your inner guru and your inner urge and your inner love. You're talking about love. You're talking about your love for your patient and your concern. Follow it then. It's your path. This sounds like this is your path. And you're going to have to negotiate with yourself when to follow it, when you feel, well, maybe I shouldn't follow it here, but maybe I should follow it here. And you don't know. We're in a realm of land of uncertainty. You can't make what's uncertain certain. And everything we do is tentative because we don't know what we're doing. We follow this, we follow that, we get an intuition, but we don't have no proof. There's no proof of anything we do. It's all uncertain. And it's creative uncertainty. It's creative uncertainty, or it's destructive uncertainty. Let's hope it's more creative than destructive most of the time. I think you have a good heart here, and you're not wrong to listen to it.
Yes. There is another question from the audience.
I've had the opposite too. Not every day, but on occasion, where after 30 years of patient, I had one. Maybe 5-10 years ago. A patient I hadn't seen since my early 30s, when I first started out, called me and she said, I thought you might need to know. I thought you might need to know that you really, really helped me. And she told me the ways that she got help by me. She's now an administrator in a high up in the nursing establishment. And her marriage worked out. It didn't look like it was going to work out. And she went on, you know, about how I helped her find herself and that she was able to, she lived a good life. And she just called up out of the blue. I remembered her, of course, but just to help me. She said, I thought you might need to know this. Beautiful.
Yes.
So saying the opposite. I thought you might need to have a little contact with me, so I'm calling because, you know, you're really communicating. I'm calling because I'm concerned about you. On a deeper level, I'm calling because I love you.
You know, I remember also from the supervisions you gave me and the conversations, the book, our conversation, that we always said that therapists should follow their inner voice to do what they feel is right for them. This is more important than some, you know, psychoanalytic rules or standards, and that you always respected how I thought I should I should help my patients in my own way. And you seem to be saying that this here again, that we should listen to ourselves as therapists.
Yeah, if you're lucky to be able to hear yourself, why not listen? Shema, listen, hear. And that's how the Shema Yisrael is listen, 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 listen and hear. And we have deep intuition, and a deep ineffable self, a deep heart. We have many hearts. We have many hearts within and outside each other. And you cannot exhaust the human heart. It's never ending. And Bion talked about psychoanalysis as being embryonic. It's not like we know what psychoanalysis is. We're discovering it as we go along. And you could say today, I don't know whether I'm a better analyst or a worse analyst than I was yesterday, but I'm a different analyst. Something else is happening that I didn't expect. And something else is coming up in me I didn't know about. So it's never ending, and it's always opening. It continues to open, and new dimensions keep coming. And it's an endless act of discovery, and it's a beautiful profession, really. If it's a right profession for someone, if it's the right profession for you, it's a beautiful profession, and the beauty keeps opening.
Yes. There is another question from the audience, and I want to hear what you think about. Many patients have left therapy. What? Many patients have left therapy. And many therapists feel, I had this feeling myself, that is this a reason to leave the therapist? Am I useless? Am I meaningless for him? And when you find that 3 or 4 patients leave you, it might get you feel that you are, very bad feeling that you are incapable, that you are meaningless, that you thought you are so important and so meaningful and you help so much for the patient, but you discover that you're not that important. And this is, highly depressive.
Well, I don't know, because I don't have that experience, but so I'm the wrong person to ask, but I will talk about it, because I've never felt that grandiose in terms of being a therapist, of thinking I'm indispensable, if it turns out I'm indispensable, I'm pretty humble about it. I thought, oh my God, this person needs this attachment as a lifeline, as an umbilical to stay alive. They're being fed from a invisible psychical cord to psychical cord, and it's keeping them alive. But I'm humble about that, because I'm just a person. I know what I'm like. My wife could tell you, my kids could tell you what kind of a person I am. And I have patients who have to make an awful lot of allowances with me to stay with me. Most of them do stay, but they have to make allowances for my puttering around, taking a drink, moving, being a little restless. And some of them it aggravates, but they manage to handle their aggravation. That's what I was trying to say about this other person. Saying you really should try to endure this. You really should try to persist. Persistence and endurance are very important. And don't shortchange yourself by giving into this. But don't lose out. But the ones that have to leave, or that's going away. So if the therapist is finding it has a sense of importance, I haven't had that. I'm just a human being. But but I recognize that I'd be important to that person because of my function, or because of the umbilical, or because he's being supported, or he's being held up in life. He's being held in life by me, by his picture of me. Okay, but if they leave me, I would at least try. That's fine. That's fine to leave. Come and go. Go away forever. Whatever it is. But if it's possible, something I learned in my first clinic job, make everything a clinical issue, because in the clinic where I started, patients come and go. Therapists come and go. Patient never knows if the therapist is going to stay, because they're, the therapists are all going to school and they're learning and they're getting paid $5 an hour. They're going to get their internship done, they're going to get their residence done, and they're going to go on to something else. So the therapists are going to leave, and the patients come and go because they can't make much contact. I learned that from Gio Vicchini years ago. It's not a transference. It's not a transference. It's a contact function that got wounded, that never got built up. That it's part of one's characterological makeup. It's not a specific transference. It's I can't take this contact now. It's too painful. I need to space it out. So in clinics, you have patients coming and going, and you have patients who show up 1 week and don't show up for 2 weeks and then show up again. And the administration says, get rid of the patient. You say, no, this is what it is. And in the clinic work my wife does, she has patients now for 20 years who come and go. And she lets them do it. And the administration leaves her alone as far as I know now.
I agree, but this, that's one patient, but sometimes you don't even have a chance in this current crisis to say goodbye, to talk with them about that, we have to have 3 or 4 sessions dedicated to our departure, to ceasing the therapy. It happens so fast, so immediately, that and it happened with not with one patient or 2 or 3 patients.
And that happens. If that's life, that's life. Life takes precedence, if that's the way it is. If there's no time to say, tell me about the fear. You can go. Just tell me about the fear. What are you afraid of? You're afraid of. But I want to hear, because this is a very scary time. And I'd like to hear anything you could tell me about why you need to go, why you have to go.
Yeah, that's what we say to our patients. But what do we say to ourselves? How can we feel not devastated by that?
It would bother me, because I think it's part of life. If someone is going to leave and they have to leave, and they have to do something else, they have to be by themselves with their life. It's their life. And life is bigger than therapy. Therapy is part of life. Life is part of therapy. Therapy is part of life. And if you apparently take it personally in a way that I wouldn't. So there's a difference.
Okay. I see. Let's talk about money issues.
Now, at least you still have some patients left. They didn't hold them.
Yes. Well, yes.
Left. So work with them. Work on yourself. Work with your own existence. What do you like to do for exercise?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Well, still, we feel
the therapist, of the patient, of the therapy world.
Yeah. Let's talk about money issues. There are many questions from the audience about fees and money issues. There is a huge financial crisis in Israel. Many people has lost their jobs.
Here too.
Yeah, we know. And people are feeling that to be in psychotherapy right now is a privilege they can't afford. It's not part of their bread and butter, first food for their family. And they quit therapy. It's not their first priority. And we have to, to hear all these things and to handle all these things. How do you relate to this?
If that's the real thing and they can't afford it and they have to quit and you don't want to work for free, then that's reality. Reality is reality. You can't get around it. That's just what it is. And apparently your sense of beauty and your sense of caring and your sense of love has a hard time digesting the fact that reality can be this harsh, but it is true. And it's just, if my own fee schedule is extremely flexible. They said, what do you charge? So I said, it's going to scare you off if I tell you, but I'll tell you, but I'm a little bit flexible. So I find out what they want to pay. If I don't have room at that time for such a little fee, I'll try to find someone for them that will do it. But I have a huge fee range, and I have people who I haven't raised my fee with for 40 years. So no one is going to drop out because of money, because I won't let them in that sense. If it's only because of money, how little do you want to pay me? 2 cents, 3 cents, a penny, nothing? All right, we'll talk on the phone for nothing for a while and see what happens.
Yeah, you would agree for that?
I might, under certain circumstances, agree to that, yeah. Depending what I thought the situation was, what I felt, and what the intention of the other is, what, you know, or what, if I had any sense of what their needs were, I don't know. But yeah, I might do that. If I could have, I would still have enough patience to put bread on the table, as my father would say. My father came to the United States in 1923 as a 14-year-old, and he found ways to put bread on the table. And so I wouldn't hurt myself in any major way by giving someone else a break, but I would give people breaks, yeah, if I could afford it.
Yeah, but how would it affect therapy? And let me give you an example of a patient.
So I'm not traditional that way. Yeah, I have a lot of traditional things and absorbed a lot from tradition, but I think that there are bigger things in therapy than the rules.
There are bigger things than
the rules.
Rules.
Then the RULES, rules. Or
rules, yes.
There's bigger issues, bigger realities, and we're still learning what therapy is. It's not what it was 40 years ago. It's that and lots of other things. And we're still learning that you could have therapy in many, many different situations, in many there's no one situation in which you could practice. I have had, you know, I have gotten a lot out of one session with someone rather than 50 sessions with someone else. So you don't know what's going to affect a person in what way. Now, was Beyond being a psychoanalyst when he told me to stop therapy and get married? Was that a psychoanalyst? Was that a mother or a father? If my father had told me that, I wouldn't have listened. How come I listened to him? What made me listen to him? And I did listen to him. There was something about him that I felt he was doing something really for my own good, not for his own good.
Well, in your case, he was right, wasn't he?
He was right. And when my father would say things like that, I thought he was doing it for his own good, but not for me.
Yeah.
So there's no rules here. You're making it up as you go along. You're making it up from your brain, from your heart, from your gut, from your nose, from your tongue. You're making it up from your ears. You're making it up from the feel of the situation. And you don't know if you're right or wrong. Maybe it's the wrong thing. But this is what you need to do now, what you want to do now, what you're trying to do now. You think this would be better now. That's all we can do. And over time, it usually does help people, whatever it is we do or don't do. And yes. Different therapists different people will help other people in different ways. You can help people in ways that I wouldn't or couldn't. And maybe vice versa too. I'm not so sure vice versa. I think that that there are ways that you do therapy that I couldn't do therapy and that you would help people by it and I wouldn't. So we have our own special set of systems and talents and abilities and capacities, and our job is to use them. And you use them your way, I use mine my way, and we do good work. We do good work with many people.
I want to give you a little example how fee reduction can have an impact on the therapy. I once gave someone a very large discount. He has to pay half price that he usually pays because he had financial difficulties. And in one session, he was kind of upset by me, by something I said, and started criticizing me. And after the session, I thought in myself, he's so ungrateful. I'm giving him such a huge fee reduction, and he's criticizing me. So part of the payment is also a freedom to tell us everything that he wants to, that he can, be rage at us and be furious at us and even sometimes, curse us. And because he pays for it, so he doesn't own up anything except the money. So if we reduce his fee, wouldn't it affect the therapy? The inner freedom to say anything that he wants to.
Maybe for some people it would. And then the therapy will go on at whatever level it's going on. It'll still can go on. It might affect it. You could then talk about, just because you're paying nothing, are you afraid to give me help? So, I have a feeling that you're holding back because I'm giving you a break. So listen, when you get on your feet and you feel better and you get better and you make more money, you'll give me more money. And then you can give me help then. But maybe you could practice a little now anyway.
Yes. Well, there are some questions from the
interesting jobs.
Yes.
Part of our job is, it's like psychic. I'm not a good container. I'm not a good holder, but I am a good let it all happen kind of thing. I know there are people like who would give hell back to the patient. I tend not to do that. I tend to sit with the patient for whatever length of time it takes for them to catch on to themselves. Even, if I'm with a very toxic person, I'm not going to make them feel bad about their toxicity or rub their nose in their toxicity. I'll just sit with it for as long as it takes for them to recognize it and begin to work with it. It could be 15 years, whatever it is. So I don't want to rub people's nose in their own psyche and humiliate them by their own psyche. I just rather tolerate it and let it come in and out and be part of the air and just let it be there for as long as it needs. I let it go. I don't hold it in me like you seem to hold it maybe more in you. I just want to let it go and say, this is what the person needs to do now. I'm gonna outlast it. I'm gonna sit here for it. If this therapy ends, I'm not gonna be the one who ends it. They're gonna have to do it themselves. They're gonna have to say, I can't stand being with myself with you anymore. I'm gonna have to leave. I can't stand it anymore. But I'm not gonna, so I'm gonna sit with it as long as the patient can take it. And it's a different attitude. It's a different attitude of letting, you just let it be. And the person's got this virus, got this psychological virus, and it's all packed up with all kinds of horrifying trauma from their own life. And let's see how long they can last with me. If they last 10, 15, 20 years, they're going to get better. Mm-hmm. A little better.
Another question from the audience. What if you are willing to work for free for the current crisis in order to keep therapy going, assuming this is temporal?
Well, what about it? There's no one rule for that. What would it be like for you? What would it be like for the patient? It's something you can talk about if you want. I don't see anything wrong with it if that's what you feel like doing. Mm-hmm. You never know. I know I've had patients who over time, when they start getting jobs or make more money, I've had a number of patients who raised my fees because they couldn't take the guilt of paying me so low anymore. Mm-hmm. But for the time being, you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want. Whether you talk about it or not, if you can't talk about it, good, you don't have to. But the main thing is that is the presence, that you're presenting yourself as a presence to be with the person for as long as they need you, in whatever ways they need you. And you're giving them the opportunity, you're giving their psyche an opportunity to be with another person who's less judgmental, who's less mean, who's less attacking. And even if you feel like attacking, or you feel mean, or you feel all these things, you build up your own capacity to feel them. If you think it'll be fruitful to share any of it, Lou Aaron used to share a lot of this stuff. I tend not to. I tend to hold it and look at it and say, look at the toxicity that this person has been living with. Look at the hurt or the contractions this person's been living with. Look at the difficulties this person's been living with, and let me sit with it and see what we can do over time, and give them room to breathe, give their psyche room to breathe. A lot of people have stopped breathing. They're contracted, their psyche's contracted. And you want them to thaw out and be able to breathe and taste, and give their psyches a chance to breathe and taste and smell and feel again. One of the things I loved about the British school, why I turned to them and turned away, I was talking about this yesterday at a seminar, that in America, when I was coming up, psychoanalysis felt to me very dead. There were certain life spots, Harold Searle's, but overall, the ego psychology of the time, important as it was to learn, because they had a lot of good insights, it was deadening. I felt it was deadening. I felt this wasn't, and then I, by accident, discovered the British school, discovered Winnicott, and then later on, and Melanie, first Winnicott, then Melanie Klein and Bion, and others, all the others, Marion Milner, Masood Khan, whatnot. I felt, oh my God, here is a group that's addressing the stress of not having feeling, because they were working with patients that couldn't feel their feelings. So they were trying to create a situation to allow one to make contact with more of one's psychic realities through sitting with it, through holding with it, through being with it, less interpretation than the quality of your presence, the quality of your being. And your patients feel the quality of your being. And that's more important than how much you're charging, where your office is, and what conditions you're working in. So I started out with working with kids in camps and treatment centers. So you could do therapy in almost any setting. You could do therapy. If we were in a concentration camp, we'd be doing therapy there. If you're on a Buddhist monastery, you could do therapy there. You could do therapy in any setting, walking down the street. Fright used to walk with patients. He used to take walks in the country. That was his walking therapy. So he did writing therapy, he did talking therapy, but he called it talk therapy, but it was much more than that. It wasn't just talk therapy. So it could be art therapy, it could be music therapy, poetry therapy. A broad range of culture he brought into his therapy. And all these little offshoots grew up because therapy was pregnant with all possibilities of ways of working, and it's not finished. There's more that's going to grow. And this crisis is going to make therapy develop further ways of being with people, because we have capacities that can be with people in almost any kind of way. And how to work with them for good, that's a challenge. The challenge is to keep on evolving as human beings. We're very far away from being able to be with each other in less destructive ways. And I still think we're the biggest virus. And how to work with our beings in less destructive ways is a continuous challenge. And unfortunately, having a virus like this inside, which attacks us from the outside, attacks our insides from the outside, is a paradigm for what we do to each other. And we have a chance to develop capacities that go further than the book. We open up another page now. We turn more pages now. We do more learning and more giving and discovering. We can do therapy in any condition, whatever. Some people can't do it. They can't do it. I gotta respect them. If some people say, I gotta see you. I gotta see you. I can't go on unless I see you. I would say I accept that. I accept that, but I wish you could. You know what Beckett says? I can't go on. I can't go on. And then a part says, you must go on. You must go on. And then a part says, I will go on. I will go on. So if you could force yourself to go on, I think it'd be better for you. But if you can't force yourself to go on, maybe that would be better for you, and I don't know.
Yes. I would like to, get back, just a minute, I just opened the lights. Sorry. Oh, that's better. I would like you to go back. I want to read you the thing that everything is happening right now, and that we cannot digest everything, and that is too much is going on. I want to read you a paragraph from The Sensitive Self, and I think it relates to these days. Beyond associated O with catastrophic impact. The Big Bang moment is ubiquitous, ongoing, unpredictable, potentially exploding into new universes. The impact of reality is far greater than our ability to process it. We can't take too much reality. We are always behind the impact of the moment, at best able to process crumbs broken off from the whole. But those crumbs can be rich indeed. I think many of us feel that it's too much right now to digest. I don't get that feeling from you, though. I think that you seem to feel that there's nothing really new about this crisis, that it was always here with us. But I think that many people, especially young people, feel that something is really happening, a big thing that they cannot digest. And many patients feel that too.
Well, if they had been born at another time, in another place, at a certain point in their life, they would have had to face something that was big too, whether it was the Great Depression, whether it was a war, whether it was a catastrophic happening, whether it was getting hit by a car, whatever it would be, that would be destructive to their lives. They'd have to face it. Maybe a loved one left them. Maybe their sweetheart decided to go off with someone else, so they would have to face it. But there's no life that's catastrophe free. We live with the catastrophic dread within. It's part of our makeup. But the fact that it doesn't stop, and it doesn't stop. The fact that it doesn't mean we can digest it. I can't digest any of it. That's one, I could digest maybe the tiniest little bit. That's one of the things that has helped me a lot, realizing how little of it I can digest. So I'm not like persecuting myself for being a bad digester. And the question is, what can I work with? What's the little nibble? What's the little nibble? Now, some people have bigger nibbles and better nibbles than others. Like, Shakespeare was a droplet too, a little nibble, but it was a much bigger nibble than most of us have. But his life is a funny life too. I think he died at the age of 55 from getting sick after a drunken dinner, falling into a swamp and getting some kind of germ, some virus, some disease or bacteria that they couldn't cure. And it's interesting. I like to think about people's lives and what happens to them in terms of, Marion Milner lived to 98, Spotless lived to 100, Bergman lived to 100, other people, Keats lived to what, 30? And Kafka 50. It's interesting what is going on. So, so Shakespeare, he tried to digest a whole big chunk of stuff. Harold Bloom thought that Shakespeare gave birth to the human. People think all kinds of things. And to the human as we know it today, his characters have the same kinds of problems that we end up having today, only they were able to give them more voice. But what happened to Shakespeare? It's an interesting life. He's a psychoanalytic minefield. This great psychoanalyst, Shakespeare. So he, like a good jazz musician, was making his living some way else. he dealt with real estate to support his need to write. He also had left his family in the country to go to the city so he can make a living, and so he could write at the theater and play in the theater. And so when he made enough money to return back to Ava, back to his home, his kids grew up without him. So he returned. His last plays are a great plays too. His last plays were terrific. Then he decided to go back to the life he left originally, and he died 2 years after that. It's like when he stopped being creative, he died. And it's an interesting, what makes that work? I don't know what makes that work. It's interesting to think about, though, these patterns. So so there's some virtue to staying with the life you got. There's some virtue to leaving it, and also staying with it at the same time. And building on your own capacities. You don't know what you got. You don't know what you got or how to use them. Give it a try. See what urges you have to follow. See what urges you have to follow. I have no idea whatsoever how I ended up writing 29 or 30 books. I don't know how that happened. It's nothing I could have predicted, nothing. It's like I didn't do it. It's like, how did it happen? I have no idea. But it was a therapy. It was a form of therapy. And so much of what you do is a form of therapy in your own way. We don't call it that, but taking a walk, for me, taking a run, going to a movie. We can't go there now. We can watch on TV. Erotic moments. We do have all kinds of parts. We have all kinds of avenues for the therapy of our life. And if we can get an attitude that's less persecutory to ourselves, less of the, I should be doing that. I should be doing that. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing that. There's a little movie by Beyond that's on YouTube. If anyone wants it, feel free to write it to me if you can't find it yourself. It's his little tiny clip when he was at Tavistock near the end of his life, talking about terminal cancer patients. He would say, so what does terminal mean? What does terminal mean? And he would ask them, what can you do? Not emphasize what you can't. What can you do with what you got now, in the time you have now? Yes, you're terminal, you're going to die, but what can you do now? And it's a lovely little clip. I think at that time he had cancer and didn't know it. He found out the story is he had cancer and didn't know it. And his emphasis, what can you do now? So about that time, a director from India, Kumar Shahani, asked him to come back to India to do a documentary on his life. By that time, I guess people were interested. Let me hear about your life. And so Vian had moved to Los Angeles in 1968 and stayed there until this time to go. And then he went back to England on the way to India. He had lived his first 8 years in India. And then the parents sent him to a boarding school in England when he was at the age of 8, and he never returned. I'm not going to go through all the traumas he suffered. It was one trauma after another. And yet he had this thing that kept going. This thing that, what is this mysterious thing that kept going that happens to many people, but doesn't happen to everyone? Some people kill themselves. God bless. Terrible. But what is this thing that for most of us, we keep going? Anyway, so he's going back to India. So I don't know, you probably know all these stories better than me by now. I've told them often. In 1968, he basically got kicked out of London. They thought he was going senile. After Melanie Klein died, and he did these 4 amazing books, Learning from Experience, Transformations. His biggest one, his amazing book, if you haven't read it and you want to be amazed and you have any mystical sense about you, Attention and Transformation, Attention and, what is it? Attention and, I don't know, Attention and Transformation, I don't think that's right. Interpretation, Attention and Interpretation. In 1970 it came out. So that finished him in London. Finished him in London. He's senile. He's not an analyst. God knows what he is. Anyway, he got invited by Los Angeles, by a whole bunch of people, Jim Grotstein, others, to go there. So he goes from London, where he's had a huge career, into Los Angeles. And the Los Angeles Society doesn't accept him as a member because he's too Kleinian. And he got kicked out of London because he wasn't Kleinian enough. So this is life. So he was worried. So the people who invited him set him up with the practice. They went into supervision. Grotstein went into therapy with him. It was he didn't lack for making a living. But he was always worried because he wasn't licensed and he didn't have the approbation of the official institute. So he was worried about, doing something crazy and getting sued, especially since he worked a lot with psychosis. And the parents would get furious or something with him. So he lived under a certain fear of that, he was in waters that would go over his head at some point. Anyway, that's when he wrote Memoir of the Future in parts, basically. And then, so he's getting ready to, so Kumar asked him to go to do this documentary. He's going back to India. He stops in London and Oxford. And he dies 2 months later. He was diagnosed with cancer 2 months before he died, and he died, so the movie was never made. He never got to India again since 8 years old. And Kumar, he died at the age of 81. I thought it was 82, but it's not. It wasn't 80. It was 81. And Kumar then decides to make a movie based on his autobiographical writings, in particular Memoir of the Future, if you call that an autobiography. It's an inner autobiography. It's like James Joyce's Stream of Consciousness. And so Kumar got a lovely group of actors, a really good group of actors. And they began to put together this movie that Kumar wrote, and Meg Harris Williams, that's another story, wrote the script for the two of them. And they have a bunch of fragments about, I don't know when, about 8 years ago, I put these fragments online. And I got permission from Kumar and Meg. And so that you can find it online. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll send it to you. It's the unfinished movie of Memoir of the Future, Beyond. Why is it unfinished? Okay, so the official thing, which to clean it up, is that they didn't have money. They had money. We were all giving them money. Big Grotstein, I was, Roland Harris Foundation, they had plenty of money. Meltzer. What happened was Meltzer driving his car, they were in India, driving his car with Martha Harris, who is now his wife, Meg Harris Williams' mother. They got married after the father died. And he got into an accident, and Martha became paraplegic, and that ended the movie. And so the movie was never finished, bunch of fragments. And I happen to love the fragments. They're wonderful, they're online, you should see them. Beyond's unfinished movie, Memoir of the Future. It was done in 1983. That's about 1980, that's 4 or 5 years after Beyond died.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's very interesting.
Beyond said a number of times that anyone associated with me and my work, be careful. I've seen too many catastrophic outcomes.
Yes.
And so,
and I think many are afraid that this current crisis will be a catastrophic outcome.
It will be a catastrophic outcome for in terms of, as I figure out, maybe 3% of the people who a lot of people are going to get sick. A lot of people are going to. I see more and more. I don't know, you probably don't know what's going on in the States so much, but there's a terrific governor of New York, Mario Cuomo, who stepped up to be presidential. He's the one who's been the presidential one, the one who's been saying what to do and how to do it. And he has a brother, Chris Cuomo, who is WSNBC, a progressive TV station.
Yeah, we heard his funny dialogue with his brother about their mother.
Yeah. And well, Chris has now tested positive for the virus, and he's broadcasting from home. So lots of people have this now, you know, and most people run through it not so bad. Another portion run through it pretty bad. We have a neighbor down the block, her daughter had it, and she tested positive, and she went through it. She says it's worse than a flu. For her, it was much worse than a flu. It was awful, but she's better now.
Yes.
And she probably has the antibodies, so she can't communicate it. So most of us are, if we get it, are going to go through it. Most of us are not going to get it. Those of us who do get it will probably go through it okay. Some will be very, very unhappy of going through it. It'll be awful, but they'll go through it.
Yes.
And some portion of us are going to die. And it's been like this with every plague, every disease throughout human history. This is not the worst disease in human history. It just isn't. And it's not a good thing to have. And there's going to be more after this. When this fades into the background, it becomes part of the negative background of our lives, part of the possible diseases we can get, like the flu or worse, or cancer. So how's that for Beyond dying of cancer and he didn't know it? And he found out 2 months before that's bye-bye. So what can one do? Meanwhile, we're here. We're talking, you're in Israel, I'm in Brooklyn, New York. We're talking. I see nice faces up there, the ones who show their faces. And I can't help saying is, I know that you guys are very sensitive to the catastrophic aspect of it, which is very real. Israel is an amazing country, and it hasn't solved its problems with catastrophic possibilities. It's certainly ongoing. That's going to continue. And look at you were talking before about a germaphobe who now feels at home because other people are germaphobes now. I wash my hands 1 billion times a day. I'll wash my hands after this broadcast, I'm sure. But our president of the United States, who himself is a terrible virus, he is a germaphobe. He washes his hands all the time with everything. That helped. So I once was studying with a rabbi who said something like, he doesn't know what he said, God got us into this, God has got to get us out. Well, I don't know about that because we have a funny kind of God who does a lot of funny kinds of things. So we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we soon have to end this interview. So I just have this recurring question from the audience. I guess you meet people not at your office right now, but at your private home. And people therapists are troubled by that change in this setting that, sometimes people actually are guests. The patient seems to be guests in our own homes, in our own houses, sometimes in our bedroom, because there's nowhere to talk with patients. And I wonder how would that affect the patients and the therapy. Now they are into our house. We see their houses too. We see their homes. We see their living room. They see our living rooms or even our bedrooms. What do you think of that? How will that affect our patients, especially when one day they will have to come back to their office, to our office, and feel that they have now missed something? They are not guests anymore at our house. They cannot peek up at us, but they become more distant. And I thought of how will it be more too seductive and too something that can challenge the therapy.
So my feeling, as you can probably guess, is it's all as they used to say 50 years ago when I was in training. It's all grist for the mill, and you don't know what's going to come up next, but that's grist for the mill too. So if you guys can talk about it, loss and change are part of life. So if you're, whatever the disturbance it is that's involved in this, that you have, it's seductive, it's this, they're too intimate, they're seeing, get over it. Get over it. Get into it. Get into it. If it's something you can talk about, okay. If it's not, at least experience it. Experience the difference. What's it like for you? You could ask. You could what's it like? You feel a gratification that you could look into my house? Do you feel like a peeping Tom that you shouldn't be doing it? A shame, a guilt? Do you feel a pleasure? Is it all mixed up together? It's not any different from any other part of life where everything is all mixed together, where loss is part of it, where disturbance is part of it, where caring is part of it. Why not? Why not? When a situation changes, you change with it. You grow with it. During the Second World War, the Winnicott and Claire Winnicott went out to meet the children in the country, to talk to them when their parents were out at war. Whatever it is, whatever the situation, you can still do therapy. You can still do therapy, and whatever the situation is, can feed it, can detract from it. And if the person says, I don't like to look, say, well, I don't like a lot of things too, or just. If you didn't like this, you wouldn't like that. So there's always something not to like. There's something in my office you don't like. So my feeling is I would with the patient who wanted to leave because he couldn't stand it anymore is get used to it. Get used to it. What can we get out of this situation?
Thank you so much, Mike. I think that it's a great sentence to end this discussion. We can still do therapy.
You can, and you will, and you must. In fact, I don't know if you can do anything else. I think that therapy is just part of life. We're always doing one kind of or another. So I think go for it. Go for it and grow from it.
So thank you very much. And I have to share with you some of the comments from the audience that are really grateful for you. We are getting many comments about how it's was helpful and how you've been so supportive for them. And I think that was just what we needed.